Hello, hello. Welcome to another Cleverly Changing podcast. I am your host. I'm usually joined by the co host, and I am Elle Cole from the blog cleverlychanging.com. And today we are talking about support within homeschooling. So, I want to tell you a little bit about the podcast first. The podcast started in 2019. It is usually an audio podcast that is found on most platforms where podcasts are played, like Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. You can also find us, we have a presence on SoundCloud as well as iTunes, we're Apple Podcast, and also Google Play. So you can tune in and listen to the audio episodes there. We have 38 episodes that are audio podcasts currently. So I invite you to check them out. Our podcast is unique because it is broken into three different segments. The first segment is an intro. Sometimes we share a saying from Africa, or we share a fact or a series of information. The second part of the podcast is where you get to hear from the cleverly cultured kids. That's where homeschool kids get to talk about education or answer different questions that relate to them, or they share a biography about someone's life, and it's pretty interesting. So definitely check that out. And then the last section is the grown folks section, is where the adults talk about educating our children. So there are a variety of guests that we've had on the podcast. We've had a child who was homeschooled. Well, she's an adult now, but when she was a child, she was homeschooled by her single mom and she went on to college. So she shared her um, her experience. So if that is a story that you can relate to, definitely check that podcast out. The guest was Amelia, and I'll have to leave in the comment section. I will leave the actual show notes on my podcast on the in the comment section. I will leave which podcast that is so that if you want to check that one out, you can. The other information that I want you to be aware of about the podcast is that the grown folks section, we do have a couple of podcasts that really relate to parents of children with special needs. So there is a virtual podcast where we spoke with someone who's a RN, and she works with special needs children. And when the pandemic hit, many of those kids they had to also transition. So how did that look? So for people who have IEPs, 504 plans, what was that transition like? So there is a podcast on that, as well as a podcast of where we had an interview with a special needs director. So she was the director of the special education department at her school. The school went from K all the way through 12th. And so it was great to get that perspective about how her school had transitioned to support families of children with 504 plans or IEPs, and parents who are raising children who are special needs. So if that is a topic that resonates with you, I will also put a link to that in the podcast as well, in the comment section as well when this conversation is over, because my goal through this podcast is to support families. I know many of you are just now considering homeschooling for the first time, and what does that look like? As a homeschool parent, I have been schooling my twin daughters for about 7 years. And so I wanted to share my journey and how it's been for me and my family with other people. So these conversations are really just an intimate conversation where we're talking about how we make it work. And so I try to be as transparent as possible. And I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, to really get to know me and my family and our journey, but also to get your questions answered. So if you have questions, leave them in the comment section. Even after this podcast is over, I will still monitor the comment section. So if you are watching the replay, leave the word replay in the comment section. So if there's a topic that you want me to delve into a little bit more, leave that in the comment section so that I can address it further. But I want you to know that, we've been doing this for about 2 weeks, and I really hope that families are being encouraged and they're being strengthened by the conversations that we are having. So today is no different from the other conversations we've had, but I always try to have some conversations where we have a guest, but in 30 minutes, we don't always have a lot of time to really talk. And so today is just me, and I'm having a conversation with you. So if you are watching, let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section to let me know that you are here and you are watching the broadcast. Also, today we are talking about something that I think is the most important part of homeschooling. And to me, the most important part of homeschooling isn't the curriculum you choose. It is setting up a foundation where you are supported. So you want to make sure that your children are well supported with their education, but you as a homeschool parent also need support in order to follow through with it, because every day is not going to be easy. And right now, with the state of the country and the state of the world during this pandemic, it's overwhelming, not just for our little children, but also for us as adults. Many schools across the country have not made their decision to homeschool. So this is unique. This is a unique opportunity. And so I wanted to just take the time to talk to you guys about that. How do you develop a community of support? So if you have any guess about how to develop a community of support, or if you're watching and you are a homeschooler and you have created a community of support, leave some of those suggestions about what has worked for you in the comment section. So I want to talk about the very first way to set up your system that is a community of support. And that is, if you have a spouse, or if you are in a relationship, the other person who is also the parent of that child, you want to establish a community of support in the home so that you're both on the same page. It is very hard to homeschool effectively if one parent is on board and the other parent is not. That is very difficult because you'll always feel like you have to prove yourself. And when the going gets hard, something has to give. And so that is first and foremost. Try to make sure you're both on board. If the other parent is not on board yet, try to attend a practicum or attend a session with like a homeschool conference. There are several conferences that have gone virtual where you can hear from other parents, both moms and dads, where they share their homeschool experience. And so you want to take time to hear both perspectives, because you want to make sure that your children see a unified set of instructions and that guideline for what you're about to embark in homeschooling and how you present that academic information. You want to make sure that you are on the same page. In my personal experience, my husband was actually homeschooled all the way through fourth grade. So he was definitely on board when we decided to homeschool. I would say he was even more comfortable with it than I was. And I was the parent that was the primary homeschooler at the time. It is something that has grown on me. And so now, we have a whole new perspective about it. But I think that going into it, you want to have that comfort level that you're both on board. The next way to build a community of support is to tap into your friendships. So it could be family members or friends, but you want to look at your inner circle and you want to see, hey, do I have friends who perhaps they can teach a subject that you are not as strong in, or your kids can read to them virtually, or, there's some type of other engagement, even if it's just an encouraging word. So for me and my family, I don't necessarily have my family members participate in the homeschooling process in a tangible way, but they do offer me words of encouragement. And if you know anything about Gary Chapman's book, The Five Love Languages, then you will know that in the five love languages, one of the love languages is words of affirmation. And so for me and my family, they provide words of affirmation by letting me know that they appreciate and they admire what I'm doing. And so I really take that to heart in order to keep going. So definitely create a team of people who can encourage you so that when that time and when days are rough, you have some supporters in your background. So definitely tap into your friends and family and get that support. If they can provide something tangible or virtual, I know I have a friend whose sibling spoke Spanish, and she was willing to have Spanish conversations in Spanish with the homeschooler. So look and see how you can kind of tap into the resources that you have close at hand in order to make sure that your child has a well-rounded education. That is the goal. So that's really your friends and family setup. But also, there are some external sources that you can look into if you are trying to find extra homeschool support. And one of those external sources is the HSLDA. So that's the letter H as in hat, S as in Sam, L as in lion, D as in David, and A as in apple. So the hslda.org provides support. And what does that stand for? It stands for Homeschool Legal Defense Association. So every state in the United States has different homeschool rules. So I have, for my entire homeschool career for my kids, we've always been in Maryland. So that is the system that I am familiar with the most. But here's the thing. If you are in an area that has a lot of homeschool laws, you may want to tap into the HSLDA, the Legal Defense Fund, because you want to make sure that you're compliant. They also have an academy that's online, that's virtual. And so you want to look at those resources. I know when I've seen their resources, I'm not that familiar with them, but when I've seen their resources, they seem to have more resources for high schoolers, and my children are not high school age. But if your children are, that is one place that you can look at for support, whether it's through their academy or through their legal defense fund. So that is just one of the sources that you can tap into for more encouragement and what you need. The next office that I encourage you to find support in is your local school district. And many states in their school departments for every county, they should have a homeschool department. And in that homeschool department, there is someone who can tell you what the homeschool laws and really help you understand the laws in your state. And they may know of resources and other things available. If you have a child that has special needs or special learning, maybe a learning disability, you may want to get your child tested and have a formal diagnosis done. And if that is the case, you do need to go to your local school department and get your child tested. That is one way to have the testing done that is paid for by the school system and not paid outside just from your pockets through your health insurance. So that's something that you want to look into as well, especially if you need additional resources. If your child needs resources so that they can learn at the same level as other children, maybe there needs to be some tangible learning apparatus provided. If that is the case, you want to talk to the homeschool office in your local public school system so that that can be taken care of. And so you would look for the homeschool office. You can Google it and find out who's in charge of your homeschool office so that you can reach out to them. And that is one way to handle that. All right, so on my blog, I have several posts that talk about support because to me, again, I'm just going to reiterate that to me, the most important part of homeschooling is to have a valuable support system where when you are frustrated or you need to just bounce ideas off of someone, you can totally do that with a friend, but it's also helpful to do it just with a system and many people who are knowledgeable in that area. So you should definitely take advantage of creating a system of support, a community of support, so that you are well taken care of when it comes to your decision to homeschool your kids. So I want to tell you, you can go to my blog and go to episode number 5. So I'm recommending this is the audio podcast. If you look at episode number 5, we talk about homeschool co-ops and support. And in the last episode, yesterday, we talked about the co-ops, what that is, the difference between co-ops, umbrellas, and tutorials. So we went into that. But if you want to hear more information about what support is and why it's important to have a community of support, you want to look at that episode number 5, and it's entitled Homeschool Co-ops and Support. So I just mentioned homeschool co-ops. So there are some support groups that you can also have that are outside of the HSLDA, also outside of the local school board, outside of your friends and families that we just mentioned. You can develop, or you may want to join another homeschool support group. So you can join a homeschool group, you can join a co-op, you can even join a group online on Facebook. So on Facebook, there are several homeschool groups that are Facebook chat rooms where if you have questions, you can chat with other parents. Sometimes those homeschool groups are listed under the philosophy of homeschool that you choose. For instance, if you are doing homeschool based on the Waldorf philosophy or the Charlotte Mason philosophy or classical philosophy, there are groups that are designated for those particular philosophies. If you are an unschooler, there are unschooling groups. So the beautiful thing about Facebook is it has been a great place for us to connect with other people who are like-minded. And so that is one of the places that you can go for virtual support. And I don't want you guys to think that virtual support is not as valuable as tangible support, because virtual support can truly save you time, because there are so many parents that are in these virtual Facebook groups, these homeschool groups, who have been homeschooling sometimes for 15 and more years. So you get access to people who you may not otherwise know. You may live in a community that doesn't have a lot of homeschoolers, but these Facebook groups put you in close contact to be able to ask questions of people who are veteran homeschoolers. So definitely don't minimize the value of Facebook groups. Tap into that, join some Facebook groups. I will definitely, after this conversation, I'm going to write up a post that tell you about some of the groups that I'm a part of. I value the groups I'm in. I don't always get to participate a whole lot because when you are, trying to teach your kids, trying to do other things, you may not be online a whole lot, but I still value what I do in the groups. I often search for topics that I'm looking for. So if I have a question about a certain curriculum, maybe I found a curriculum and I want to see, well, what were other people's reviews? I may see reviews on the curriculum itself, but I often go into these homeschool groups that I'm a part of and I search. I go under the search tab and I look and see, hey, did anybody else what were their thoughts on it? And usually, if I start there, I will probably find something. Now, if I don't find anything by searching, that's when I actually write a post and say, hey guys, I'm thinking about this particular curriculum. Have any of you ever used it? And usually I get an answer back. So that is a great way to find real support in real time. So I encourage you to look into the Facebook groups. So I also wanted to share with you, I have a post about 10 ways that dads can support homeschool. Now, when I wrote this post, it was because I love the role that my husband has in our homeschool. Now, it has changed over the years. He's definitely much more hands on now than he was at the beginning, because in those beginning years, I just loved the early elementary years. That is where my love of education is. That is my passion. The middle, my kids are in middle school now. So the middle school is, I'm a little bit, it's not my heart and soul like it was those early years. And so my husband is taking more of an active role. So I will say, when I put this post on my blog, initially I had a comment from a parent who said, well, everything that you listed was, I'm the mom and that's my role. Well, here's the thing, people. Everybody is different. Different families have different roles. So if the things that I list, if they fit you as the mom, then, you do that. I'm just saying these are the things, and this is the way it has worked in my particular family. It is not exclusive to us. It is not saying this is the only model. There are many different homeschool models. There are many different ways that dads can support. And, you do have to think outside of the box. So these are just some of the suggestions that we utilize in our family that I am sharing with other people. So, what are some of the things that I feel that dads need to do to support the homeschool? And the first one that I have on the list is have at least one date night a month. When you homeschool, it feels like all of your time and energy go into nurturing your children. And so it can be easy to want to nurture their academics and then you neglect your relationship. And I caution against that, because you want your kids to see a healthy relationship between mom and dad, or, whoever you're with. You want them to see a healthy relationship. So, and you as a parent, even if you're a single mom, you want to be healthy. And so your date night could be a date with yourself. It could be self-care time. So I'm just sharing in the realm of how it works in my family, but there are many ways to apply these suggestions outside of the way I'm sharing them. And so the next thing I have, include dad. So as a parent, how do I try to include my husband? I ask him for his suggestions, or I tell him, hey, these are the lessons that we're going to approach this week. Are there any lessons that you would like to teach? Give dad a say. Let him also help make the decisions. And if he doesn't want to be hands-on, that's perfectly fine. But if he does, give him an opportunity to do that. So it could be, dads can still help the children with their homework. You can give a little assignment that the dad can help with, or, you can set up a science and experiment or something else, but incorporate dad and give him an opportunity to also have a say. Okay, the next thing that I have on the list is present the information to dad. So what does that mean? So just like they have parent-teacher conferences in a school, in a regular traditional school, you can have a parent-teacher conference with the child's parent, the other parent, because you want to make sure that you are sharing, hey, these are things that I'm learning about our child. these are the ways I want to approach it to maybe strengthen that skill or maybe help them to develop other areas. But you want to talk about that so that you're both reinforcing the same concepts and you want to collaborate and work together because parenting is about partnering with each other and really helping to provide that your child with the best support system that you can. So both parents need to be aware of what's being taught. The next thing I have is read books with the kids. We love to read as a family. And for my kids, when they were little, they would read to us and we would read to them. And so that gives the family a great opportunity to collaborate. Now that they're older, I find that when we're on a trip or we're doing like a long drive, we often listen to audiobooks together in the car. And so that gives us a chance to discuss a book or listen to a book together and learn together. So you want to use the reading or listening to audiobooks as another way to share in that learning experience with each other. And all parents or all family members, even grandparents, can also participate in that as well. So the next thing on the list, number 6, is game night with dad. If you are following my Instagram, which is instagram.com/cleverlychanging, I'm cleverly changing on Instagram, you can see that recently we had a game night. We've actually been having game nights several nights. So if you swipe through, you can see the different games that we've been playing. Some of the games that we've been enjoying more recently is a game called Suspicion, and it's like a mystery game. We have to find out, you know, who the other person is. So we don't disclose who we are. We're, given a character and we have to guess who everyone is. So that has been one of our favorite games to play recently. And so we've also played Sorry and what is it? Scrabble. We also played Scrabble. We have a game called Nabbit. So I encourage you, get together and have a game night. Games are great because they help with memory, they help with problem solving. And so that is a way that the family can engage in learning together. The next thing is going hiking or camping. I love family time. Sometimes that can mean camping in the backyard. We have actually done that where we set up the tent and stuff in the backyard, and it just felt like we had actually went on a camping trip. We have gone camping, real camping, and we had a great time there as well. And so that is one of the things that you can do as a family to engage each other and learn together. The next thing is watch a movie together and discuss it. So this goes right along with the audiobooks and the value of talking with your kids and opening the lines of communication. So having a discussion after you watch a movie is a great way that's not formal, where you can connect with each other. And so you want to do that and, build those memories together and support each other. So the next thing you can have your kids do is write a letter to the parent who's the non-primary teacher and tell them about what's going on in school, especially like if you have journal time in your homeschool. This is a great way to make that journal time practical. If you want to incorporate the grandparents, just recently we had our children write letters to their grandparents, and let them know, the conversation, what they talked to the grandparents about was really up to them. But I think it's important to let your kids, write. But sometimes you have to make that practical. And grandparents and just people in general like to receive something tangible. So it gives your kid writing practice, but it also gives them an opportunity to connect with someone else in a loving way. So whether that's the non-primary parent who's teaching or a grandparent or, a friend or whoever, or even a neighbor. I know my kids, when we gave them that assignment, they wanted to write their elderly neighbors. So, hey, as long as they're writing and connecting with others, that's really what matters. And the very last thing I put on the list, number 10, is encourage the non-primary parent to share one of their hobbies with the kid. When you're homeschooling, you're not just sharing your personality, you're not just learning your children's personality, you're also sharing yours. So you want to use that as a time to share the things that you love as well. So if you are an artist or a painter, share your love for art with your kids. If you are a musician, share your music. If you are a knitter, share your knitting, teach your kids, but also give your children an opportunity to teach you as well, whatever they love. My kids love building and love Legos and robotics. And as a family, there have been times where we built things together. And I know for years we would go to the Lego builds at the Lego store, and they would have time Lego things that they would create. And when my kids were really little, I used to help them out. But soon they were just able to do it themselves. And so that is, you can, do a challenge together where you can see who can create something the fastest. And like, if your kids love Legos, there are different things to create Lego wise on their website. So look those up, find a way to connect on an intimate level where you love something and you're inviting them to love what you love. So share your hobbies with your kids. So this is how I think families can create a community of support. So if you have any questions, please leave your questions in the comment section below. Even if you are watching the replay, go ahead and leave the your comment in the comment section. But I thank you all for watching. If there are other ways that you who are homeschoolers, or you may be virtual learners, if there are other ways that you have found support and you want to share that suggestion with other people, go ahead and leave that in the comment section as well. And I will list some additional resources in the comment section after this conversation. So I thank you all for watching, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. So thank you for joining. If you are interested in any of the past episodes of the Cleverly Changing podcast, if you are looking for the virtual episodes, you can find them on Facebook and also YouTube. So that's youtube.com/cleverlychanging. And you can also find them on Facebook. So definitely go there. But if you are looking for the podcast, you can go to cleverlychanging.com and go to the podcast tab at the top. If you are looking to support this podcast, you can support the podcast by going to patreon.com/cleverlychanging. And there are different levels of support, but your support helps to keep this podcast going and keep these conversations open. If there is a topic that I have not covered and you want me to cover it, leave that comment in the comment section as well. So I thank you for tuning in, and I hope you all have a terrific and wonderful day. I wish you the best and happy homeschooling. Bye now.